Hi, just thought I'd join early.
Hey Ellie, it's Naina.
Hi, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, I can hear you and I can see you.
Wonderful. Just thought I'd jump on a little early so that
Right.
we can test everything out.
Yeah, no, it looks good. Yeah, yeah. The
Right.
only thing if you move too much, your left-hand side gets a bit blurry. Yeah, yeah, that's a good spot.
That's a bit better? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if you move to the left, then it seems to get weird. Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Awesome.
sometimes the background can be a little funny.
Yeah, no, I haven't mastered the background, so I just stick with mine. Yeah. So you're good. So if you want to,
Yeah.
do stuff, you can mute, and you don't need to turn on your audio and video till after Max. So Max is going to speak, and then after Max speaks, he's going to introduce Maria, the moderator, and then you need to. So you can turn off your audio and video till then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for setting this up again.
Yeah, and thanks for participating. I know this was one of your mastermind goals. So
I know. You're helping me achieve it. It's great. Yeah. Thanks, Anna. I'll talk to you soon.
Hopefully, sometime we do it in person. Right now, but it's still
okay.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. We haven't met in person, but yeah.
Really? Wow, no, I feel like I know you so well because of the mastermind.
Yeah,
wow.
I agree. I feel like we'll need to catch up and meet at an event and have a drink together very soon when we're all back to being able to see each other.
Okay, thanks, Ellie. See you in a bit. Bye. Hey Max, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I'm just doing some stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sharing right now, and then when it's after I'm just going to introduce you, just your name and you're the CEO and founder job fit, and then I'll stop the share and then you'll start your screen, your share, right? Are your slides on your desktop?
Yeah, and then I'm following up. I have a Excel spreadsheet. I'll share.
Okay. You've shared before, right? It's the same Zoom. It follows the same thing as Zoom.
Yeah, I shared before.
Okay, awesome. And then at the end, then you'll stop share, and then you'll introduce Maria, the moderator, since you know her, so you can give a little background on how you know her, and then she's going to introduce the panelists.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so I've told all the panelists, and here's Sophie, that they need to mute and turn off their video till after your presentation. So once I introduce you hi Maria. So once I introduce Max, I introduce you, I'm going to turn off my video and audio. So if there's anything, we'll communicate in the chat box. Okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi Maria. So Maria and Sophie and Ellie have joined, right? I don't think, yeah. So what I was telling Max is right now when we kick off at 6 o'clock, only my video and audio will be on and Max's video and audio. Then as soon as I introduce Max, I'll turn off my audio and video and only Max will be on. Then Max is going to introduce you after his presentation. So when he introduces you, you'll turn on your audio and video and then you'll introduce the panelists and Max will turn off his. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I think we have everyone except Amritha. If everyone's good, Sophie, do you need to check your sound and video before? Because I'm going to in about 5 minutes, I'm going to turn off the practice mode and go live. Sophie?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. You need me to move? I guess I need a better spot.
I know it's such a. Is it hot in San Francisco today?
No, it's just sunny.
It's just sunny. Yeah, it's really hot here. I'm in the East Bay. I'm like already, so that's a turn off. I'm like so sweaty.
Oh, jealous. I haven't been outside in like 6 hours. I'm gonna run outside as soon as this is done.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, okay. I'll be here. Sorry, my spread.
Okay, so yeah, you heard what I told Maria about the switching off the audio and video once we kick up, and then turning it on when Maria introduces you. So only Amritha is not on. I hope she comes on soon, but. Yeah, so okay, anything else? Anyone has any questions before we, everyone good?
I think one thing I realized we didn't talk about yesterday, but if during this conversation, like you guys have a question for each other that as a follow-on, I think that might be engaging. So I realized we didn't talk about that yesterday. But feel free.
So like if the panelists have questions.
Yeah, for each other. I was thinking that might be.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that. No one's ever done that before, Maria. That's a very good idea. Yeah, that's cool. So they'll just ask each other, right?
Yeah. I think that way it's just more engaging.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
I think that's a great idea too. We'll try and come up with something interesting.
And you know, you can also chat just with the panelists. If you go into the chat box, it has two options. It has panelists and it has attendees, and you can also send a message to just one person in the chat box. So everyone doesn't, you know, so if there's anything that you need to communicate with either me or Max or with each other or with the whole group, we all are listed under panelists. I also have Jasmina online in the panelist group. She's helping me do any back end support that we need. And Max, what I'll do is I'll also make you co-host just in case for some, yeah, Jasmine, I see you. For some reason I get kicked off, you know, the internet. I always want to have a backup so that it can still run on yours, okay? Last time I didn't have I haven't had a problem so far, but that's always my biggest fear, that somehow the internet in my place suddenly gets shut off or something goes wrong. So I'm just going to make you a co-host.
Okay, sounds good. I also noticed my name, my last name for some reason.
Oh, you can fix it. Just go, I'm sorry, yeah. Just go to it and do rename. Click on your, you see how to rename it? If you go to your name and it'll.
Found it, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no.
Okay, so it's 5:55. So I'm gonna, Amritha hasn't come on yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and just, you know, I'm gonna end this and make broadcast thing because people will start calling in now. Okay, so everyone good?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. Good luck. And if Amritha doesn't, it'll just be you know, the three of you.
Sure. And then we don't need to do anything. We just stay here, right? You're gonna just roll us over.
Yeah, you actually. So you are all going to mute one of your videos now. As soon as I go live, and then when Max introduces you, Maria, then you will turn on your video. So that'll be in another Max's presentation about 7 minutes. When he said, "I'd like to introduce Maria, the moderator of." Do you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello?
You're starting to break up.
Yeah, and then you'll turn on your audio and video. Yeah, that's what and then Max will introduce then you'll introduce everyone else and they'll turn on their audio and video. Amritha, are you in line?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, I see your video.
Yeah, I'm just starting the video.
Okay, good. Because we're going to go live, so I just want to, everyone else has checked their sound and their video, so I just want to make sure you're good to go before I broadcast it.
Just give me one moment, sorry.
Okay, cool.
I think you should see me now.
Yeah, we can see you. Yeah. So Amritha, all of you are going to turn off your audios and videos right now. And when Maria introduces you, you'll turn on your audio and video then. So in another 10 minutes, okay?
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thanks everyone. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Expat Woman, How to Find a Job Using an Employee Referral. My name is Naina Kaputi and I'm really excited to have all of you here today. I am the CEO and founder of the Expat Woman, and we host in-person events and virtual events. Excited to bring you this event today with some amazing women on our panel. And the event is sponsored by JobFit. And in a few minutes, I'd like to introduce you to the founder and CEO of JobFit. Before we do that, a couple of housekeeping tips. Since this is an online event and we don't have much of an opportunity to introduce each other, to meet each other in person, do share your introductions in the chat box. There is a chat box either at the top or bottom of your screen. So introduce yourself and share a link to your LinkedIn profile. And also, if you have any questions for the panelists, there's a Q&A box, so you can type your question in the Q&A box. And at the end of the panel discussion, which will be about 45 minutes long, the moderator, Maria, will read out your questions and the panelists will answer them accordingly. So I encourage you to type in your questions soon if you want the panelists to get to them, because we only have a limited amount of time for the Q&A. And definitely introduce yourselves to each other in the chat box. We've been doing this every week, and a lot of our guests have made connections by connecting with each other via this format. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Max Kwok, who is the founder and CEO of JobFit and the sponsor for today's event. So without further ado, Max, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Max, founder and CEO of JobFit. We started our company and we're really focused on employee referrals and how to better that conversation around job referrals. So thank you again for joining us. So I'm going to go straight to the point. We're all here to find job referrals. Finding a job referral really depends on our network. But what happens when we quickly exhaust those contacts in our network and not a single job referral pans out? We need to reach out to people outside our network, but that's when obstacles feel really big. The best job referrals come from company insiders who are also employees. They will potentially advocate for you and fight for you if you're the right fit. Now, pre-COVID, reaching out to company insiders on LinkedIn to connect over a cup of coffee and eventually slip in a job referral request would be reasonably accessible. However, things have changed in the COVID era. At JobFit, we talked with many company insiders whom we personally work with, and their inboxes currently are flooded with requests to jump on Zoom or for a job referral. Now it gets extremely overwhelming when requests for their time are not specific and not well thought out. When requests are not specific and thoughtful, company insiders are pressured to spend time researching more about who is reaching out to them, and that's time that they likely won't have. Unfortunately, we live in a new age, and we can no longer ask someone to just jump on a Zoom call and passively ask for help. We need to be more proactive, more thoughtful, and above all else, more time sensitive. At JobFit, we make connections and conversation over a job referral more thoughtful, more respectful, and overall just better. For each of the panelists, we developed what we call a company insider link, and I'll share my screen right now. So here is a link that was developed for a moderator, Maria, and this is, it shows you a little bit about her company and a little bit about herself. So you click on her profile, she kind of shared a little bit about about her perspective of Asana, this company that she's working for. And also you can navigate over here to find out a little bit more about the information about Asana. Ultimately what we try to do is we show you what you need to do in order for you to be more thoughtful about how you communicate with your request for a job referral, as we kind of give you a format of how to formulate how you approach our moderator Maria for connecting over opportunities at Asana. Now, at JobFit, we have resources to over 500,000 company insiders, so you can be more thoughtful in your requests for about any job referral, and eventually win over an advocate to help you get the job that you want. Ultimately, when you go throughout this whole process of reaching out and connecting and being more thoughtful with the company insider, your response was resultantly look like something like this. This is a profile. So what you see here is a profile of someone who's actively pursuing working with a company called Stitch Fix. This is how they elaborated on how much they understand about the company, how much they understand about the customer, and ultimately what they can do to detailedly add to the organization's Stitch Fix. Now, you might have noticed that the author of this fit story is anonymous. We are in the business to anonymize the job seeker to protect all job seekers from job referral bias. Only when you get a commitment for a job referral, then your identity and the resume will be accessible for a job referral. This process overall enhances your appeal by filling this out for the job. Now, we help people from all career backgrounds and all walks of life communicate more effectively to company insiders for a job referral. Now, trust me when I say that we all have to be more thoughtful in our response. I very much want you all to get to where you want to be. I hope that some of these resources will be helpful to you. Feel free to follow up with me at my email at max@getjobfit.com, or check out our resources at getjobfit.com. Also, Also keep in mind that even though you will connect with a company insider during this time through our platform, companies may currently be on a temporary hiring freeze. And that shouldn't deter you from connecting, as JobFit will keep you at the top of the mind of the company insider. And I have a spreadsheet of all the company insider links for our speakers as well as previous speakers, and I'll share that in the chat box. So feel free to navigate through that Google Sheet, and you can have access to those resources as well. And at this time, I'm going to punt the conversation over to our moderator for tonight, Maria Wu Kiskis. She currently works at Asana as the Global Head of Business and Corporate Development.
Thank you, Max. It was great seeing how the thoughtfulness of what you're building with JobFit can avail a better experience for job seekers and potential champions alike. So thank you for that. And also thank you to Nina and the Expat Women team for having us here today. I have to say, you know, it's great to be here with this amazing panel of power women, and I look forward to engaging with all of you in the audience. One quick thing before we start, I know Nina had already noted from housekeeping, but please do, for anyone that's joined late, please do add questions that you may have in the panel in the Q&A box that's actually beside the share screen. And we'll hold off on covering them until after the panel, but we definitely want to save some time to cover them. Anyhow, let's sort of get moving. I'm super excited to delve into this hot topic that may be on many of our minds, searching for this next adventure, whether you are actively looking today or contemplating a search in the future. And our focus will really be on, you know, some tips that we have from our own experiences or from this group's own experiences and how job seekers can leverage their networks to do so. Before we dive in, I thought it'd be great to have a quick round of intros and do a check-in. And so I'm going to ask each of the panelists to please share what you and your company are focused on. And as a check-in, one thing that you are grateful for, but didn't necessarily think you would be grateful for while sheltering in place. And to help break the ice and give you time to think about the grateful part, I'll throw out that one thing I'm grateful for and daily reflect to remind myself is this gift of extra time with my children. Homeschooling might be a whole other conversation, as well as the participation of my children on 75% of my calls, which this may be one of them, hopefully not. But once in a while, I'll have a gift like my 5-year-old having a meltdown during a conference call and then passing out in my lap. So anyhow, let me pass that over to you guys. And I think Amritha, Sophie, and Ellie, turn on your videos and your sound. And Ellie, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Maria. It's great to meet you all. So I have been working at Uber for about 3 years, and I currently head up our transit agency relations team. So our focus is on partnering with public transport, and that mandate is global at the moment. And so we've really been doubling down recently around how we help support the public sector in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And that's been really great to be a part of it. And broadly as an organization, you know, Uber's been kind of pivoting quite a lot around, you know, how do we change obviously we primarily do transportation, but when people aren't traveling, what are we doing? And so that's been really interesting to see that given the current circumstances. And what I've been, I guess, really grateful for, I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that I've got the opportunity to stay indoors and continue working. I think I feel very fortunate for that. And I'm also an introvert, I would say. So I feel sorry for the extroverts out there who are really lacking that social interaction. So I hope you're all making sure you're getting on Zooms and speaking to people. But I'll pass it over to someone else.
Sophie, you're next up in my screen.
All right.
So.
I'm Sophie. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Productboard. And for those of you who haven't heard of productboard, they make a product management system for product managers. So thinking about, what Salesforce did for CRM is what we're trying to do for product managers. Super exciting to be here and to be starting this. I actually started this job about 3 weeks ago during shelter in place. And so that's been quite interesting to get onboarded and get to know a new team, all remote, but also very grateful that I've been able to do that. I think one of the things that I've actually been most grateful for during shelter in place is like the utter lack of FOMO. Like I just feel no guilt whatsoever if I'm like, I just want to like take a nap in the middle of the afternoon or like just like go to sleep early or like watch something in my pajamas because like I feel like I'm not missing anything because everyone else is doing the same thing. So I've been really grateful to just really relax and relatively use this time, trying to stay as calm and relaxed as possible.
Amritha?
Yeah. Hi, this is Amritha. Very nice to meet you all. I work for SAP as a partner success manager with a focus in overseeing successful project delivery and enablement of the SAP customer experience solutions. I have about 10 years of experience in the B2B enterprise cloud space, and I look forward to sharing some of my experiences here today with all of you. With regards to what I'm grateful for, definitely family. And just like Maria said, I have a 5-year-old as well at home that runs around a lot. But otherwise, I think my family is grateful that I've learned some cooking during the shelter in place because we don't have a choice. So I've gotten better with my cooking. So maybe my family is grateful about that.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for that. So now diving in, we've talked about that searching for a job is never easy. And in the new normal that is now and is to come, it may be all the more challenging. Sophie, you mentioned you recently joined productboard. What tricks of the trade sort of enabled you to find success in your own job search? And then to your point that in this post-COVID-19 world, what do you think you might have done differently?
Yeah, good question. So I was on a pretty long job search, mostly because I've been at my company for a long time. I was at Twilio before this and really loved it. It's a really fantastic company, but had been there for a while and was sort of looking for my next opportunity. But because I had such a wonderful experience, I wanted to be really thoughtful about my job search and about what company I wanted to go to next. And so I really wanted to take time and have a lot of conversations with companies. And I think that ended up being really helpful. It both helped affirm for me the size of company, the stage that I was looking for, kind of that experience, that environment, as well as what was really important to me in a role in terms of, title and team and all of that. And so I think that helped me sort of be really specific about what I wanted. And then I was actually connected to productboard through a former coworker. And then because I had been having a lot of conversations, when I had finally talked with them and the team, I was just so impressed and so blown away by the team and the vision and what they were trying to do that it really stood out for me. And I felt really confident in moving forward with them because I talked to so many companies and I sort of felt like I had a good sense of what my options were out there. So I was really excited about that. Really excited about that. I think one of the things that I found really helpful in my search and that I think would probably still be relevant, well, I would hope it still be relevant, even during these COVID times, is thinking about, I think a couple things. I was looking at companies sort of on vectors of which companies I think had a really exciting culture, sort of places to work that I really identified with, and then which ones I think were also, viewed both by the industry, by VCs and other companies as, hitting onto a good idea and a good product idea. And then last one, I think to me was just in a space that I was personally excited about. There are a lot of exciting areas in tech. Some of them are more interesting to me than others. And so I was trying to find that kind of perfect intersection. And so I think by, doing a lot of reading and talking with different folks and looking at different kinds of lists and compilations, it was helpful for me to get a sense of what was out there. And I think, different landscape again with COVID, but I think there are a lot of great resources that I've seen around, companies, where they're doing well, where they're seeing market opportunities, the kinds of roles that are being hired for. So I think there still is a good opportunity to still kind of apply, understand what your criteria are, and then apply that as you're going through different companies and sort of searching for opportunities that are out there.
Great, thank you. And Amritha, you had joined SAP a little bit over a year ago. Is there anything that you would add that you did or that you would think about differently?
So in my case, I don't mean to clarify, but it was an acquisition from Calidus Cloud to SAP. So it's a total of 5 years with the company. So I didn't really have to go through a job search process. But I guess I would add to what Max as well as Sophie just mentioned. So it was interesting. Max started off with sort of, I guess, some of the key points that probably we would touch on at, in some form or shape today, which is, I think job fit is sort of probing to think about those things, which is, to be well researched and prepared for, the company that you're interested to apply for and what exactly you're looking, as the next step. So if you're looking for a job, what exactly are you looking for? And, what are the open positions the company has advertised for? Absolutely, there might be internal positions that you might not be aware of that you can check when you reach out to somebody that's an internal employee. But I think doing your research and being clear about what the company has to offer and what you really want to be doing as a next step is important. And one other thing that I would add probably is the meetup and interest groups. So if you're absolutely clear about the area or the domain that you want to be approaching as your next job interest, there's different avenues, including LinkedIn, that offers ways for you to find interest groups and meetup groups, that come together. It's maybe not possible during the COVID times, or maybe they're still doing it virtually. But meetup groups and interest groups are something that I'm actively part of. In partner success, also in my previous life in customer success, part of several different groups that, I've been able to network with people that have the same interests and think the same and are doing the same jobs for different companies. And we talk about different approaches. And that just gives me an opportunity to expand my network within the domain or area that I'm interested in. And just to highlight that those groups or meetup groups are not restricted or limited only to people that are already working in that space. So it is possible that if you're someone that's absolutely interested in that area, you can still hang in there, you can still go attend them, and you can build your network and try to understand what people doing those jobs are actually doing.
Super helpful. Are there specific meetup groups or other ones that you would recommend more than others that you found?
I would only be able to speak for customer success or partner success, and those are ones that are all available on LinkedIn. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I can post some on the chat.
And so maybe that's a good thread is as you're thinking about the roles, find topical or functional meetups and networking that you can engage in. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Well, you both referred to conversations with, leveraging that network, doing the research, finding folk. So given where we are today and this reality that grabbing a coffee has new meaning, there are companies that have hiring freezes in place. Ellie, I'll throw over to you. What advice would you have for someone who wants to get your attention? There's going to be a lot of noise right now because we're not meeting one another. What would you say? What advice would you give to someone?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Maria. I think there are a couple of key things that I would just keep in mind if you're trying to get in front of someone. Firstly, make it easy for them as much as you can. So, I think it's a little bit hard if someone's sort of saying, oh, can I have this? And isn't sort of suggesting times or making it really easy to connect. So think about your message, make it really clear what your ask is. Provide your contact information and your availability, and just try, be mindful of that other person's time. And I think they're more likely to respond. I think secondly, also, it's important to just make sure that you're tailoring your message. So if you'd really like to work at a company and you're reaching out to someone, just make it really clear, you know, perhaps you're not reaching out to the right person, but you'd like to connect them. So just make sure it's tailored. And wherever possible, I think also try and give them something as well. So, you know, I know I was connecting with someone who reached out from McKinsey, and they sent me a great article that was relevant to my sector on sort of how COVID was impacting public transportation. And that was fantastic. We jumped on a call and really shared information. And I think so, as much as you can kind of lean in and be helpful to the person you're asking something from, I think that'll really get their attention and put your name to the top of the list. And I think just lastly, you know, I think given with everything going on, you know, I think you can have these conversations and just be mindful of the timelines, and just, even if people are saying it's not right now, I think it's great to try and get in front of someone, and, you know, at least you'll have that connection for when they're hiring again.
Absolutely a good point on cultivating that relationship. And I think that that's probably a good segue into the notion of building relationships, whether they're advocates within an organization or beyond. And so, Ellie, I'll actually throw it back over to you. You've been with Uber for 3 years now and have had a number of roles within the organization. You know, we'd love to hear a little bit about like how you embarked upon your journey within the organization, including your move here. Like, how did you leverage advocates, if you did? And
yeah. I mean, actually, yeah, surprisingly, I've had 4 roles within 3 years, which feels like a lot, but it's been a really fun ride. Essentially, I joined Uber in Australia, and I was really interested. My background was, I was in consulting, public policy and economics consulting, but I was really interested in technology and looking at how the interface between, you know, public policy and technology sort of worked. So I sort of jumped into a role, probably wasn't the best fit for me, but was able to sort of work my way into the space that I was really passionate about and really interested in. And I was also interested in moving overseas. And so I think my takeaways are, you know, I was able to sort of progress through the organization through finding, definitely through finding advocates. So looking for people I could really learn from. So, you know, if you're in a company and you're looking for advice, you know, look at the people around you and, you know, who do you think could provide you with great advice? It doesn't have to be your direct manager who could take you under your wing. And then secondly, you know, don't feel like you have to wait around for an opportunity either. You know, my role didn't exist in the US, and I pitched it and was able to come across. And so I was super fortunate in that regard. But you know, I guess that could be an opportunity for everyone to think about, you know, with everything going on, just if there aren't sort of visible opportunities for you, you know, go and speak to your dream organization and tell them your skills and give, you know, pitch yourself, be an advocate for yourself as much as you possibly can. And then also try and find people around you who you think that could give you valuable skills. So, I mean, I'm interested, Maria, do you have sort of a similar experience around finding advocates within the organization for you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so thank you for throwing it at me. I think for me, so, and I'm curious to ask Sophie about this too. I joined Asana relatively recently, so January is when I started, and here a lot of the advocacy building, if you will, has been remotely, and so that's been, I think, thinking about the value of connection is something that is extremely worthwhile, but you just have to approach it differently and thinking about what is that use of someone's time rather than, hey, here's a, you know, a water cooler or, you know, lunch conversation, etc. And I think in previous roles, I would say, you know, any success I've had, it's been through the relationships I've built, because it's really building that trust and engagement and finding ways, to your points, you know, it may not be what you need right at that moment, it's what you need in the long term. So tied to that, I mean, Sophie, I'd be curious, like, what has your experience been in being onboarded remotely, in developing advocates, and in sort of learning the way of the world product?
Yeah, no, it's definitely been really interesting because I think in a lot of my past jobs, in our past companies, I've really spent a lot of time just getting to know a lot of different people. And I think I've always found a ton of value from, the random person that you strike up a conversation with getting coffee on the way to get coffee or something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely hard to do remote. But I think it does emphasize, I think there are two things. I think of building the relationships with the people that you do work with on a daily basis. I mean, I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm still on a lot of Zoom calls with my coworkers. And I think that's still a good way to sort of bring in, build those connections, get to know them, see how you can work with them and partner with them. They're usually really excited they hired you for a reason, see how you can sort of help and support them on sort of some of their initiatives. And I think that will slowly build relationships there. And then the other thing is, I don't know how every company is handling this, but I think I've been really grateful that the company that I've joined has really devoted time to having sort of more social time for some of their coworkers. So we have, virtual happy hours, or we have, one-on-one meetups. And so I think really just encouraging people to put time on their calendar. And I think, maybe not a ton of time, I think, to Ellie's point around being mindful of people's time. But I think people have reached out and just been like, hey, love to get to know you, like, welcome to the team. And I think it's also a perk of being a small company, as you can say, like, hey, I'm new, like, what do you do? And like, people are usually pretty down to like talk with you a little bit about it and meet someone new as well, because they're in the same situation as you, they're not meeting anyone else who's new either. And so I think kind of viewing it now, especially as like a positive one. And I think of budgeting in some kind of friendly time with people where it doesn't have to be purely about work, but can just be, a conversation for like 15 minutes is a really nice way to do it. And then, I don't know, we've been trying to think of at our team, we have like an offsite coming up and we're like, how do we make it fun? Usually have like a team fun, team offsite. And so thinking about creative ways to do that. So you're thinking about like scavenger hunts in our houses or something, finding an object, the oldest object in your house, or like, I don't know, something kind of goofy, but that would be a way to like find different ways to get to know people. So I think also just being creative too.
I like thinking about that, like the ways of being creative and social and having fun, coupled with Amritha was talking about, like, find these meetups, find these organic sort of opportunities to engage with people, even when we're not necessarily meeting physically.
And the Expat Woman is an example of that as well. There's an online community. I was part of the mastermind group, which got me onto this. So it's, I think finding your community sort of makes you, it's easier to reach out to people because they know you're in a group that's relevant to them as well.
Tied to that, I think, and with you had sort of touched upon this before in terms of like, what should folks say or what should they be providing as they're doing reach outs, and Ellie, you had also touched upon this. But Amritha, in your role where you're focused on driving success with your partners and your customers, what do you think are things that people can really do to be successful reaching out, like to make you actually want to say, okay, I'm gonna respond?
Yeah, this might seem like reiterating it, but I think the most important thing is the preparedness. When someone reaches out, and I think Ellie touched on this as well. I think, when they make our job easier, when they reach out to us with regards to, being able to see them as part of our company, with regards to them displaying the strengths that they bring to the table, as well as, having researched what the opportunities are that the company offers. Now, if I'm going to take the example of SAP and say, if someone reaches out to me regarding a job position at SAP, and if they have not done any research about the products and solutions that SAP offers, if they have not done any research about high level what the job opportunities are that has been advertised out there by SAP, none of that has been done, and they're just reaching out as an open, very open-ended, saying, I'm looking for a job and I'd like your help. I think that is going to make it really hard for someone that really wants to help them. And so if it's, the preparedness, I think as many times as we say, it would not be sufficient, that, if they can get into the details of what exactly am I looking to do, and is SAP even offering that? If SAP is not offering what I'm looking to do as a next step, then I don't even want to talk about an opportunity at SAP, because it's not just about taking on anything, but taking on something that you're interested or you want to do. Even within, because again, I have a very similar story as Ellie, by the way. So I started in Australia. I did my master's in information technology in Australia. And then I moved on to Accenture in a very technical role. And with Accenture, as you might know, it is they deploy you on the client side at a client side project. And so I felt like being on the client side in a project for the client, because I was in a technical role, they kept me away from interacting with the client when I turn up every day at the client's office, because they just wanted me to sit behind the desk and just code. And so that's when I started realizing that that's not what I want to do. I want to be interacting with the clients. I want to be more customer facing. And so just like Ellie said, I had a mentor, fortunately, at Accenture. And just as she said, a lot of companies, SAP does, offer mentors who are not maybe directly your managers, but someone that you can talk to about what you want to do and what your next steps in your career you want to do. And so you can talk to them. I was literally able to express that I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. I appreciate the technical work I'm doing, but I do want a blend of being able to interact with customers and partners. And that's how I landed up for almost 10 years now in a customer success and thereafter in a partner success role. And I've not had enough of, interacting with people and constantly waking up, to go back to, talking to my customers and partners. So that's what I would say. There's got to be somewhere we start.
Yeah, and I think I would also add on to,
no, please. Saying, I was going to go over to you.
I think your advice and sort of when people are reaching out, I think definitely, I don't know who told me this early on in my career, but like when you're talking with someone, don't ask them a question that you could easily Google. Like if it's like a really straightforward question of like, do you have jobs in this department? Or like, does your company do X? Like use their time wisely, because if they don't know, they're just going to be Googling it too and be like, let me Google that. So I think when I try to think of or approach a lot of these conversations, it was really trying to think of, prepare beforehand, but also like, what can I ask this person that I'm not going to be able to find out otherwise? And so often I found it could be sort of particulars, more like culture questions or, what's, their experience actually working there or something that like I can't just Google and understand from the facts. So definitely second what Amritha was saying and do that preparation and then sort of focus your conversations on things that they can really help with. And then again, I think that also just makes sure that you're being really focused and specific about what you're trying to achieve in your particular conversation. So to Ellie's point too, of having that structure, I think it'll give you a lot of that confidence as well.
Tied to that, Sophie, I think of like preparedness, a lot of that comes together with also presentation and sort of wearing your product marketing hat. Like what aspect of presenting themselves in their, and coupled with the preparedness would help make them stand out?
That's a good question. I definitely would, I think some understanding of why they're reaching out to me specifically and sort of what they're hoping to understand from my perspective around, like what sort of essentially like what can I help them with in some ways. Because I think sometimes I have people who've reached out who've had who kind of are asking questions that I really, again, it's not something you could find on Google, but it's also not something that I could necessarily answer. Like I'm not a developer, but I've had people ask me, what are the favorite programming languages of your engineers? And I was like, I can give you some guesses, but like, I do marketing. And so like, I think also having people, understand who they're chatting with. And it also makes you kind of come off well as like they did their research. They know like who you are. They're not just like you're a name at a company. Because I think, they want to feel like it's a real connection. They're trying to get to know you. They value your experience. So I think that would definitely be one. Honestly, it's funny. I'm thinking about this. I was talking with a friend who's also interviewing now over Zoom, and he was really talking about the importance of having, good lighting and like making sure you have a good video camera. Honestly, and I was like, oh, really? Like to me, I was like, I don't, everyone's on Zoom and it's the same. But maybe it also could be something to keep in mind of like, I think, don't be like walking with your phone while you're talking with someone. I think having some basic things so it's enjoyable if you're doing it over video, or, you know, if you're having a call, have it in somewhere that's like relatively quiet. But I think some of that too, so it feels like, you know, again, like you're focused on this person and you're really engaged and sort of interested in what they're saying and trying to help you.
I think that's a really good point, Sophie. I think, you know, if you're doing interviews over Zoom, it is a little bit more difficult than being in person. And I've done both interviews in person when I'm interviewing someone and interviewing over Zoom. And I think you've just got to kind of put in that extra effort to make sure that, you know, your passion and, you know, how excited you are for the role really comes through via a video, which is, you know, that's tough to do, right? So, you know, I think just making sure that it's clear that, you know, you're excited and you're focused and your attention is on that person. I know they're real basic things, but it's just something that, a small nuance that I think you should be focusing on, just with, you know, not being able to be there and shake their hands because, you know, social distancing.
I think your point about attention, and I know for getting used to the webcams and webinars, you're like, oh, I'm touching my face, or what are things that I'm doing that I don't even realize. It's a good tool. But Ellie, you also mentioned earlier, like the whole notion of connection and the value and tied to, if someone's coming in, you may not be the person that can help them in that immediate moment. There may be someone else that you could then refer them on to. Now that also takes some of your sort of, is the word I'm looking for, but your credibility to say, hey, I'm willing to pass this person that reached out to me. Well, like, what would make you feel comfortable in being willing to pass either a stranger or a friend of a friend over?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually get those requests semi-regularly where people have messaged me and I might not be the right person. And quite honestly, sometimes I say yes, and sometimes I run out of time because it is that extra piece of effort to kind of find the right person, and, you know, perhaps they're not hiring or something like that. So I think, you know, if you do that extra step and say, hi, I'm not quite sure, would this be the right person? You know, perhaps you're connected to them. So for example, if you're part of the expat women's group and you want to be connected to someone at Uber, but it's not in my area, you could reach out to me and say, hey, you know, saw you on the panel. I would really love to be connected to someone in Uber Freight. I was thinking maybe this person would you be open to do it. And then that kind of does the work for me. And then I can just email them rather than trying to hunt someone down that I maybe don't know. That's just a practical example of it. So I think that's the thing. And also, I mean, I think the thing that I would encourage everyone to think about is that you don't have to just take, you know, a no for an answer. Sometimes, you know, it can be really innocent that people don't reply, and it's not because they're not interested in you. It just, they maybe ran out of time that day. They were busy with their kids. You know, they had 100 emails to respond to. So, you know, as long as you're doing it in a really polite way, feel free to check in, follow up. If that person isn't responding, you know, reach out to someone else within the same company. Don't take one no as the answer. What I've really found is, you know, every application we release, we get hundreds of applicants. And sometimes, you know, it can get lost in that initial process. So I don't see a lot of the applications that come through initially. It goes through the recruiters. So what you should be looking at is, who are the hiring managers and how do you get in front of them? And that could be a couple of different pathways. So, you know, try through the application process, but also try to get in front of the right people. And it could be a couple of different pathways you find you could sort of go through to get there.
I think this, do you, Sophie or Amritha, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Ellie just said, right? So I do have this difficulty sometimes when I have some acquaintances reach out to me saying, you know, I need, you know, a referral or I need help, and I'm not really the right person to help. But I just wanted to highlight that LinkedIn's been great, you know, with their recent upgrades and, you know, some of what they offer as part of the platform, where all I need to do is accept the person within LinkedIn when they send me a request. And then once they start searching for a particular job position or for a particular company, like for example, Partner Success Manager or SAP, either of the two, what happens is that once I'm in their official network within LinkedIn and I've accepted them, LinkedIn's able to show all of my contacts within SAP or within Partner Success Management role, you know, and they're able to see that. And I mean, obviously, it's not the same as me sending a direct email to somebody and saying, you know, could you help this person? But I was just wanting to highlight that they could, and I've done this myself, they could make my job a little easier in trying to help them if I accepted them into LinkedIn and they did a lot of the heavy lifting in trying to find out, you know, who in my network can help them. And then, you know, I try to reach out to that person then and say, hey, you know, she needs help, and, you know, these are her strengths, and this is her updated resume. Could you help her? So yeah, that's one way of doing it.
Thank you. To sort of bring us to our sort of final question, but I'd love to spend a little time here. I think of the 4 words, tell me about yourself. You've gotten there. So someone's convinced you guys that you want to advocate for them or you want to have the conversation with them, and you ask, tell me about yourself. And it's 4 words that some love to hear and some hate to hear those things. What are things people do that might trip themselves up with that? And, or if there's not anything you can think of there, it's like, what are some things that really, where you were like, this is going to be a conversation, but then this really got you interested and invested? Either or both, please.
I mean, I always think about maybe from the product marketing lens is sort of like, tell me the story, you know, like, and it's not like the story of your entire life. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I think also like, keep it short, but I think of a sense of, you know, tell like I was thinking, you know, like a paragraph or 2 story of like, you know, where you got to, like, basically you're leading towards with like why you're interested in my mind in like a particular role. And like, I think you want to frame out, you know, why you've been interested, why you have this experience, and then why now, why this company. It's almost kind of like a reverse kind of sales pitch, but I think it sort of helps me to understand like how this person is really thinking. Like, basically they're telling me why they're a perfect fit for this role, and they're sort of laying all that out there in terms of, you know, again, like experience, why they're excited about this particular area, why their experience is a good fit for the current company in the role, and making me really easy to be like, oh yeah, definitely, like totally makes a lot of sense. And I think that also helps, you know, I think the earlier question around referring someone, like I think if there's a really clear story and sort of how, and they're clear on why they're a really good fit, I think that helps me feel more confident in being able to advocate for them, because I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like your experience is a really good fit for this role that you're wanting to be at. And like, I think your reasons for wanting to join the company are really exciting and compelling. And so I think that's what I would want when someone says, tell me about yourself. But definitely keep it, I think, you know, like a couple minutes tops, like not like a 15-minute.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment, Sophie. And I think it is about selling yourself, right? You know, people only have a limited attention span, and if you're not top priority because, you know, you've asked for their time, I think think of your message and get your message to be very clear. You know, and make it interesting. So how can you take your experience and sell yourself and make it really clear, and maybe make it fun, you know, make a joke out of it, make it something that you can, you know, look at their background, make it something that you can bond over, something like perhaps you went to the same college, or perhaps you've both got an interest in something. You know, I think, you know, bring that to the table and try and think of ways that you can engage that person by tailoring the message to them.
I just want to add there, so I would throw in the word elevator pitch. I'm sure everyone's heard it, but you know, if they could work on an elevator pitch, which is really short and sweet and talks about, you know, their strengths and what they really want to be doing, that's quick and, you know, effective, and the right words, something they've rehearsed, I think that really would go a long way. And it also shows that they know both what they want as well as how to ask for it. You know, when they have, you know, something like that prepared and ready to go. And if you ask me about what they should not be using, I would say any adjectives, because that definitely, anything like smart, intelligent, I would say, use it more in the form of highlighting your experience or your skills or your educational background rather than actually just saying smart or intelligent. You can say the same thing by talking about specifics, making examples, a nice short story about your experience, and that would go a long way rather than using adjectives.
That totally makes sense.
I actually use a plugin which I really like on that point, Amritha, called Just Not Sorry, and it's particularly useful for women, I think, just to make your wording stronger. So removing things like, oh, I'm just reaching out, and I think, and I'm sorry, just unnecessary usage of that. So just on sort of getting the wording right there, I'll just plug that.
I think absolutely. And it sounds like you guys also touched upon like some fine etiquette, right? Like be concise, do your research, know what you're asking for, build connection, just not sorry. I really like that.
Yeah.
In ways in which those are some of the core things that folk can do in reaching out. Are there other aspects of etiquette that you would think, like how many times is too much for reaching out? What are some of the things also that people could do that might turn you off in supporting them even after you've engaged with them?
Yeah, maybe this is me, but I would think maybe reach out twice. Like, I don't know about you, but I kind of think once is fine because I might have been busy or like, something might have come up, but I think twice is a good reminder. But I think after that, I think I would let it go. I think that I find it really uncomfortable. People then send up kind of like angry or passive aggressive emails about like, why haven't you responded? It just, to me, feels really off and like very entitled, and like I'm trying to help like someone. And so if I don't feel comfortable or I don't have time, then it's not personal. I'm just like, I'm not able to. So I think at the very least, like always be really friendly and be very understanding. You're taking time from someone. And I would probably do it twice, like once as an email and once as a follow-up. I know sales, it's usually 3, but I feel like 3 emails to me would be a little bit, a lot.
I think the notion of not sending passive aggressive emails is a really good tip, because yeah, I think we've all gotten those. What would you say you would suggest they change in the second time, if anything?
I would think, and I think probably would just reiterate, reiterate why you're excited to talk, like, hey, like, really excited about your experience, or really excited to learn more about XYZ. I think you'd be really specific, like you'd be helpful specifically, sort of saying, and again, like outline like what specifically you're looking for me to do. And then probably just clarifying that ask of like, could I have 15 minutes to ask you about boom, boom, boom? Just so that I'm like, oh, okay, like, sure, I can do 15 minutes. Like, great. Yes. So I think just being as clear as possible about what you'd want. So what you're asking for from me, and try to make it feel as lightweight as possible. I think Ellie said it really well earlier.
Are there any final words of wisdom that you want to share with this group before we move on to Q&A?
Wisdom, that's a tough one. Hopefully we've been of help so far. Yeah, I think, it's a trying time at the moment with everyone being indoors and with the global pandemic going on. So and especially if you're looking for a job as well, I think that can just generally take a toll. So I just say, have a bit of self-compassion, take time out, be kind to yourself, and keep persevering as much as you can, but also rely on other people as a support network to sort of, it's great that you've joined this call and hopefully you've gotten some helpful tips, but hopefully you can, continue that as well, because it is a tough time if you're looking for a job.
Yeah. And I think I would say too, I think if you have these conversations, I think don't necessarily expect every single conversation to lead to a referral. Like, I think sometimes just, see what you can learn from every call, and like every interaction you have with someone is something that you might learn from and that might be helpful down the road, or just give you more context about a particular decision. I've had many a call where I've had a conversation with someone and I very quickly was like, nope, like not a good fit, like is not the job that I want, is not the company that I want. But that also is super valuable information. And so I think also, especially as you're You know, I think as hiring plans are changing at these companies, you know, even if you're having a conversation and there is no role, to like Ellie's point, I think you can do a lot of, you know, get a lot of research around like, is this a company that you might be interested in if and when there are more roles in the future? Or what does this tell you about the type of role and the type of experience they're looking for? You know, you can use it as research too, to maybe help you at a different company. So I'm a big fan of, a proponent of the informational interview and like the truest sense of just using it to learn more and to get more context for your search.
Yeah, I would just want to add to that as well, saying, you know, please don't beat yourself up. I think this is a great time to research and, you know, to know more about what you want to do and what are the companies out there that are in line with what you want to do. So do your research, spend time on LinkedIn, network virtually through social media with people. And, you know, companies are also facing something like this globally for the first time. You know, so they're also sort of coming up with a game plan as we move forward. So if you're not hearing back from companies when you apply at this time, please don't take it hard on yourself. I think it's just, you know, happening globally, and just, you know, keep at it. I think with all of you on the call today, just being on this call, it just shows that you're doing the right thing in trying to prepare yourself. And as Sophie mentioned, if you want to be taking any courses, any educational courses to expand your knowledge or skills, there's Coursera, there's different online options available for quick 3-month, 2-month, 1-month courses that certify you in specific areas that you might be interested in, that you could add to your resume. And once all this is over, it just gives you an edge. When you talk about the story that we talked about your story in an interview, then it just gives you an edge when you have some certification like that. So something to think about.
Thank you. And to all of your points about doing your research, being prepared and knowing what you're asking for, I can also think, you know, from my experience that being clear to who you're asking for something, like, what do you want? What do you need from them? Is it a brainstorm? Are you early in your process? Are you already thinking about something? Because I've definitely had conversations where folk will come and I'm thinking that they're interested in a job, but then they'll be like, I don't really know what I want to do. And this is like my first touch point. And I'm like, okay. So it's not just, so do research, prepare, not just prepare about the role, but also prepare about yourself, know what you're asking for. I'm trying to think some of the other recap things that you guys have said that was super helpful are have some self-compassion, but just not sorry. Build connection, even if there's nothing at present. Realize that it's a trying time and, you know, be gentle on yourself as well as the person you're reaching out to. 1 time fine, 2 times is good. And definitely don't send passive aggressive emails. So I think that those are some of the key touch points, and wanted to thank everybody for joining. For those that can stay on, we're going to move over to some Q&A now. Okay, so bear with me as I read some of these. I think we touched upon the notion of what to do if you have emailed people, network, and customize message, but they don't respond back. And so I think it's follow up, and you know, don't be passive aggressive, and perhaps, you know, look at another way to engage them. But hopefully that's good. Anything that anybody else would add to that? By the way.
Yeah, I think finding other avenues, like, you know, I'm sure there are other pathways to a company, and, you know, if that channel isn't working, try and find another.
How are your feels, by the way, on how, I get a lot of reach outs being like, so I look after business and corporate development. I get a lot of emails. Oh, I'm really interested in a product management role. I'm really interested in a biz strat role, without any context. Like, do you guys respond to those types of emails, or do you like to know if they're actually reaching out to those other teams too, or is that something that's useful?
Honestly, if it's not specific and it's vague like that, it kind of comes across a little entitled. So if I have to do the work, it's sort of, you know, I kind of leave it to them. If they want to come back to me and make it more specific, they can. I've had people just saying, oh, can you just tell me about your market? And, you know, something really vague, and it's sort of, you know, that's tough to be incentivized to help someone out when you've got a lot of other asks on your demands on your time. So yeah, I think that can be a real blocker.
And actually, Max, did you want to do were you supposed to do the Q&A? Forgive me, I kind of jumped right in.
No, I mean, like, I will chime in, but this is all about y'all, so I'm here to support.
What advice do you have now to work? I think we talked a lot about networking remotely, so I think we'll consider that. And then
I think one interesting thing as well will be that, you know, remote working will be more of a thing going forward. So something to consider as well, looking at opportunities. If you're not getting much traction in your own market, maybe there are more remote working opportunities than there were historically.
And does anyone want to provide a sample message to send someone on LinkedIn?
So I have a thought on that. I think right now, as it is, like, we're all connected, we're all using the internet. Zoom is just it's just commonplace, and so we are all kind of versed in templated messages to a point where we can automatically recognize it. So if you need a sample message, I know it's easy to be inclined to look at a sample message and kind of look at that format and just send it out to someone, but it oftentimes falls flat. So I would say, if you're reaching out to someone, be a little bit more personal why you're actually reaching out to that person in the first place. Like, is there some sort of common background? Are you moving from one city to the other, and that person also moved from the same city to another city? Like, resonate with that person. I think that someone will actually respond and connect with you, rather than taking a templated message and kind of repurposing it for whatever you do.
So next is, I've joined late, I'm really struggling to return after kids. Any advice? My network can help, but some are mostly my age. Hiring managers are 10 years younger, so unfortunately not in my direct network.
I mean, I can speak to not having a direct network coming internationally. I think, you know, it can be tough not being able to lean on anyone directly, but I would just go back to sort of the earlier points made that around Amritha's point for joining groups and reaching out that way. I think there is a lot of opportunity to create networks online. And there can be some, I mean, I know Deloitte has a great program, for example, specifically targeted to returners. So there are opportunities like that around.
Yeah. And I also would echo that too. I think that also can be a chance to learn a little bit more about companies' cultures. Like, I think it's a good chance to get to know, you know, what the company values and how they think about it. And so I think there also could be programs or specific emphasis on it. Because I know some companies have had, you know, just different kind of policies, different approaches to have people who are returning to work or that are more focused on it as well. So those could also be good places to start, because there's probably, you know, a focus on people coming back to work after a while, and that's more of an emphasis in general. So could be also like Max was saying, sort of like, hey, I'm specifically interested in this particular program. And I think, you know, as someone who's reaching out, like, that also makes me be like, oh, that's cool. If you know about this program, like, let me help or try to get you connected to someone at my company in that program. So I think also, like, use that part of your experience and see if the company has things similar. That could be an interesting way as well.
Yeah, I would just add to that saying, you know, like a short message or a short note with your updated resume, as long as you know exactly what you want, and it's not like you're just sending a message and saying, you know, is there anything that you're aware of that, you know, maybe I can take on. I mean, that's very open. So if you're sort of aware to some extent with regards to what you want, and the reason I say this is right now with the COVID situation, I have a lot of my friends from my ex-colleagues sending me like really short, quick messages with their updated resumes saying, I don't know what it's going to be like, you know, and if there's any opportunities, let me know. And so they're very particular about, you know, the role, and they give me their experience and what they're looking for and what they have been doing in their previous job, etc. So it makes it easy, as Ellie mentioned as well, if I'm not the right person, to pass it on to somebody who is. And I know hiring managers that are looking for people even at this time. So if they match some of what the hiring managers are looking for, then possibly it makes sense to forward it over to them. So it doesn't hurt to just send a message. As long as it's short and sweet, you have an updated resume, and you know exactly what you're looking for, and you're not too open about it. What I mean by open is you're not leaving it to me to decide, which role I need to pick for you. You know what you're looking for.
I can actually jump a question because this one seems a little meatier, and we can go back to the other one afterward. But what was an example of the job search challenges you faced and how you solved your challenges?
Very broad question. Trying to think of what particular angle would be helpful. I think one of the ones, and I guess maybe it depends on sort of where you are, how you think about job searches. I think some of the ones that I've been sort of thinking through is sort of really knowing in some ways like what I'm looking for. And I think maybe you were talking about this, Maria, of what am I really looking for from someone in like either in a conversation or in my search? Am I often looking more for like, hey, I'm thinking about like these two roles. They seem really interesting. Like, what's your take on like, which is could be a better fit, or, kind of like help me figure out where I want to go next. Or is it, really specific and targeted around like what kinds of companies or culture am I looking for? And I think I've often noticed that I can sometimes get kind of attracted by like kind of like go down various tangents of like, oh, like I feel like I know what I want. And then like someone is like, oh, interesting company or interesting job. And then I'm like, ooh, fun. And like down the rabbit hole and like spend a bunch of time like exploring it. And then to be like, wait a minute, why did I go down that path? And so I think part of it is sort of being like, I think knowing what you're looking for and what's important, and then staying focused on that, because I think, especially now it is stressful. There's a lot going on. And so I think really just focusing your energy on where it's going to be most satisfying for you and presumably the companies that you're going to. And so I think, letting it's okay, like there might be shiny things, but let them pass and sort of focus on what that you're interested in, because presumably did a lot of thinking about that and really came to that realization after some good reflection in sort of your experience. And so I think that was a challenge I had, and so I wish I'd done more of that. So if that's helpful.
One thing I'll add to that, because I had a lot of thinking around this, because oftentimes people don't know, what do you want to do next? And in a potential silver lining of the world that we're in is this may be that opportunity to explore something that you might not have thought about before. But a career counselor had once given me advice that think of your world in sort of 3 concentric circles. One are your close circle, colleagues that you feel really comfortable with, friends where you can say, I don't know what I want to do. And you might, bounce ideas with them around like what type of company, size, function, geography, are you willing to relocate? What are things that really matter to you? But you don't know those answers yet. And so, have it with those that you feel comfortable with. Then sort of is your next circle, which is your, maybe some of your former colleagues, people that know you a little bit better. And so you can still sort of be in that space of, I don't really know, and I want to refine this. And Sophie, maybe this is some of what you were thinking through, but you're sort of testing the waters, but you're not completely blank. And then sort of that third network. And I think employee referrals probably fit in this bucket, which is the cold call, the friend of a friend that you've never met or don't know. Be clear about what you want to do or what you want from that person, at least, even if you're still testing the waters, because he or she may not know or have context about you. And so is going to be less forgiving around like, if you're not being as clear as you want to be. So I think that those are some challenges.
That's a good tip as well. I've seen a career counselor before and it was well worth the money. So, that could be something that someone else could use as well as an avenue to support them.
Let's see. Should I ask for a call, maybe several calls with the person I find on LinkedIn before asking for a referral or an introduction?
I'd say, I mean, use a little bit of emotional intelligence there in the conversation to just gauge how the conversation is going first. So if you're, you know, having a chat and it's going really well, you know, I think that you can kind of, you know, I think number one, make it clear that you're interested. And then, you know, either over the phone or even by way of follow up and make it optional. I'd say, it was fantastic meeting you. I'm really excited about a possibility of a job in your organization. I think I'd be a really good fit. If you would be comfortable, would you be open to doing a referral? Obviously no pressure, but let me know what you think. You know, I think on the other side, people get referral bonuses a lot of the time, maybe not right now, but you know, I think there can be incentives in place that they want to find referrals. And so, you know, I think putting it out there, I think, you know, using Max's platform also makes it easier. So I think just gauge it based on sort of the discussions and how well it's going.
One question, I'll actually combine a couple questions that seem to be related to each other. Are hiring managers expecting people to do online education? And online education hasn't necessarily been a priority for mine. Yeah, I'll chime in here where I would say, like, think about what are you applying for, and is that online education going to help you get further to what you want to do if there's a change, right? Online education is an investment in yourself. And so even if you've been super busy with your job search in the last few weeks, if online education is going to be that investment to help you get the job, maybe it's worthwhile making it a priority.
But I think from a hiring manager perspective too, I think to Maria's point, it's probably going to be viewed like it would be viewed the same, I think, whether or not it's COVID or not. So if it's something that would be relevant and helpful for you in a position before then it's probably still helpful to do now. But if it wasn't, or you weren't thinking about doing it before, then you probably don't need to, or I wouldn't necessarily think you need to. But again, I think if you do have the time and there's a course or something you've been wanting to do for a while, it's a good opportunity. But I'm not getting the sense that people are expecting everyone to be studying and doing a lot more work just because we're at home.
Yeah, but is the question more around, you know, is it required to do online? I didn't understand the question. So is the question really asking, do we need to do online education, or is it really taken seriously if you did online education when you go for an interview?
There wasn't clarification. I would probably say, so the question was, are hiring managers expecting people to do online education?
Okay. The reason is I've done online courses myself, and I think if the question is really around, is that really considered, you know, like any other education? If you did an online education, I would say yes, as long as you're able to speak to it. The story, the short and precise story, you know, can include all of this about your education, your skills, your experience. And it only builds to that story if you had, you know, if you had a course like this that you can highlight. But you need to be able to speak to it. You need to have actually, you know, walked away from that course learning something so that you're able to speak to it in an interview. So I think that's just the key.
If I can add to that, like speaking to it, I just really love that point. Like I've taken a lot of online classes, online education in my career. And I think one of the key points is how you speak to it. Sometimes people take online education just to get the certificate. And I think most people don't really resonate with that. And when it comes to, especially hiring managers, when it comes to seeing that if you actually took it seriously or not. I think if you took that online education and used it as a tool in order to propel whatever goal you set out to achieve, I think that speaks more to what motivates you. And it definitely is a much more compelling story than just saying, I took this online education, it's top tier, and I got this.
Making a slight pivot to conversations that either someone's made a connection within a company and they show little interest in talking to me or answering my questions. What would you do when you're talking to someone like that when they're your only contact within the company? And related to that, I'll throw in the other question from Vicky, which is how to maintain the relationship with someone that you had an informational interview with but didn't have the right opportunity. So someone doesn't want to engage, or they might not be the right opportunity. I think I would say they're both kind of connected. Like, what can you do rather than expect someone to engage? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think you could do a little audit of your communications with them. Try not to take it personally, sort of take the emotion out of it and just say, look, if they're really busy, they're still replying, which is great. But also, is there any way through sort of an audit of the communications to date that I could maybe make my requests of them easier or more straightforward, or is there a way I could sell myself better? So just going back to the points that we made, how do I kind of pivot the way that my message is conveyed to sort of engage them more?
Okay. And actually pivoting back to the last question, thank you for sending a clarifying about the online education. It's our hiring managers expecting people to take more classes because they have this time.
I don't know. I don't have any expectation, and I can't imagine that would be an expectation, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think it's an expectation.
Yeah. I concur there too. And then tied to that is this person Natalie's been wondering about product certification. She has 10 years of experience, but she's been out 8 years. Does she need to get a certificate?
I'm looking at you, Sophie, with a product background.
Yeah, as a product manager, again, I think it maybe depends on like the school. I think to Max's point, I don't think a certificate alone is sort of the thing that's going to make or break it. I think it really would be sort of like the experience. So how do you speak to it? What have you done? Is there sort of side projects that you could talk to? I think if anything, it might be helpful to sort of show like something you've worked on. So you can sort of show something you've worked on recently. But I think it could be helpful, but I don't necessarily know if that would be the only thing. Because I imagine it too, if you've had 10 years of experience, that's going to form a big chunk of how what how to do the discipline. And then the certificate could maybe just be a refresher. And so kind of framing as that of sort of, getting up to speed on things that have happened in the preceding 8 years. But I would still think the majority of your story would still be from itself. And I think that's what the hiring manager would be looking for.
And if you're trying to pivot back into an area that you were in previously, but you're trying to get back there, maybe it's about getting back in through the way maybe you're currently in Eng, you're trying to get back into product. Maybe it's about going in through Eng, but then pivoting internally. That might be easier. I know someone who's taken a role in my team, but interested in moving over to product, which is a pathway he wouldn't have successfully gotten into through applying outright, but the pathway I'm more than happy to help him achieve through sort of our internal processes.
And I just want to add that, I think it would help if, you found opportunities to volunteer. So it's not easy to find a paid job in a line that you probably don't have the most recent experience in. And this is something that I've done myself. So when I took a break and I had to get back to work, it was really hard for me. And one of the things I did during the time that I was on a break was I was volunteering. It was not paid, but I was able to keep to that, to bringing my experience to the table, utilizing my experience and keeping it more current. And so, again, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities available, via social media, via LinkedIn, that you can find within the area that you're interested, whether it's product or anything else. And just try to volunteer. If you're unable to find a full-time job immediately, volunteer for the period that you're not able to.
And I'm cognizant of the time, and I see that some folk are starting to drop off. There was, I think, 2 questions about whether or not the recording and the chat and Q&A would be available. So Nina, maybe you could confirm, I believe you are sending out the recording to the attendees, and then I'm not sure about the chat and Q&A.
Yes, I will be sending out a recording in a couple of weeks. And the Q&A is, since you're, you are sharing the questions and everyone's responding to them, that will be part of the recording as well. So I did let people know that the Q&A box is closed right now, so we're not accepting any more questions, but Max has shared his email. So because folks have any additional questions, they can email Max, individually. But do you think you could get to these questions? Maria, do you have enough time? We're not going to take any more questions after this. Natalie's is the last question.
I'm fine. Are you guys good to stay on for a little bit? And feel free to also go in the Q&A if there's anything that you think you can specifically provide insights for.
Well, that's a good idea. You can also type responses to something that you think is very specific. We will be ending at 7:30, so let's move forward. But thank you again, and I'll jump back in towards the end. Thanks, Maria.
Sure. Any thought on how many referrals is too many referrals to one company for one job? When targeting a big company, it's possible to get several people willing to connect you with the right people. And if there's time pressure, a candidate might try 3 to 5 possible connections in the hopes to get one. What if all 5 came back and are willing to help? Pare it down to avoid too much noise. I'd say that's a good problem to have, but.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Also, I mean, I think the only limitation there that I've come across, Leanne, is just some systems like our recruiting system only allows one person to refer you. And so in that case, I'd choose the closest person to the hiring manager or the most senior person. But you can always say, hey, I've been formally referred, but I would love if you could, make sure my resume is top of mind. So you don't necessarily need to be formally referred by all 5, but if you can get all 5 to be your advocates, that's great.
Actually, one thing someone did had asked me to help with was she collected sort of informal recommendations that she sent to her hiring manager. And also, I mean, I can imagine you can also use an informal recommendation to send to someone to be like, hey, that may know the person you're trying to reach out to make that connection.
So just quickly, I want to add to that, right? So this actually happened with somebody I know, that they tried using 3 different referrals with my company, and it didn't actually go very well. Because they felt like, each of them felt like they were putting in the effort and trying to connect and talk to the hiring manager, etc. So I'm just speaking from one experience that I've known standpoint. It doesn't have to be the general, but just something to keep in mind, that it's great to build the network in the same company with different, 5 or 10 or any number of referrals that are ready to refer you. But I think at a time, if you're able to proceed with one who's ready to move your, because again, as Ellie mentioned, there could be some sort of a bonus, a referral bonus to the person that's referring you, etc. So there's a lot of confusion that could be caused internally with regards to who's referring you. And there was the case where 3 people was referring the same person, and they did do some heavy lifting in trying to get to the hiring manager, etc. And then 2 of them got really upset that, she was proceeding with a 3rd person. So I think something just to keep in mind.
I can add.
Do you think it would have helped if they were more transparent around sort of having
that? Maybe, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to add to that. When you're asking for a job referral, you're actually asking someone to use their social capital for your benefit. So if you were to ask for multiple people for the same job in the same team, I think that would present a situation that Amritha kind of talked about. But if you're talking about multiple positions, for example, SAP is so big, if you're interested in a product manager role, but 2 product manager roles are there, but they're different, I think there's flexibility on asking for more referrals based on different positions rather than the same one. So I think it's all circumstantial, but make sure that you're wary about that you're asking for someone's social capital that they've kind of accrued over time. And if you're asking them and then their social capital's gone to waste, that's kind of a crappy situation. So I think that it kind of depends on circumstance to circumstance.
Very good point, Max. Yeah, I agree.
I think maybe we can go through some of these quickly. You've mentioned sharing an article when reaching out. To me, this feels so unnatural. Could say an example of a message. Could you say an example of a message like that?
Yeah, I think that might have been when I mentioned that someone had shared an article with me. So a contact that I had at McKinsey had reached out and shared something, and that was just because it was relevant and he knew that would be interesting to me. So I think it's just something along those lines. So if you've spoken to that person, it might be a bit more natural. So perhaps, we've met briefly and then you wanted to follow up, but you wanted me to be engaged in that follow-up. It could be a way to tailor that message to sort of have more of a discussion. So yeah, I think that's where I was going with it.
Yeah. And it sounds like that might be more to kind of a relationship building rather than sort of an outreach for a referral specifically. Like it sounds like you already knew that person and they were kind of looking to deepen the relationship perhaps rather than sort of start from scratch.
I think I definitely understand what you mean about feeling unnatural, because I think, different cultures can be different. In Australia, for example, it'd be a little bit more unnatural to reach out cold and go for it. I found actually in the US, people are a lot more friendly and open to these sorts of things. So good on you. So, I think maybe particularly if you're looking for a job in the US, just feel okay. It's, people are really open to sort of connecting with people, even if they haven't met before.
These next 2, I think we can take together, which is how many interactions should you wait before bringing up the request to make a referral? And then how long should you wait before following up for a second time if someone hasn't responded? It's probably like, what is the time frame? I'd probably say like a week or 2 before following up. That seems like a good amount of space where if they saw it, you're still top of mind, but it's not, too frequent to be annoying. And then the bringing up the possibility of a referral, I think similar to what you just said, Ellie, about the article, like use your judgment and thinking about like, if you're having this great rapport with somebody, then maybe you might go sooner. Maybe that's the first or second, I don't know. And if you have this opportunity to really learn more in the conversation, then maybe you're going to have more conversations before you ask.
Mm. Yeah, that feels right to me too.
Okay. I think this is similar to the whole certification. So a question around a UX designer with only 2 years of experience. They don't have a bachelor's or master's degree, which seems to be a requirement. Are boot camps taken seriously?
I mean, I definitely think they can be. I think a lot of it, again, comes back to, I think it's less sort of the boot camp and more sort of what you're able to do or sort of how you're able to talk about. At least if I was looking for a hiring manager, I think they sort of want to see that you can do the work and sort of hit the ground running. I also, though, I think would emphasize, I think some companies are more open to hiring people with from bootcamp backgrounds, because I think it is a slightly different profile than like a traditional for UX, but like for engineers. Like I know Twilio has a dedicated program for people who've gone to boot camps, and so they explicitly hire. It's called Hatch, a really cool program. But so they're like really looking for people with that background. And there's a couple of other companies I'm blanking on, but I think you can research that I know really like partner really closely with a lot of the people from boot camps. And so I would sort of look at them and start with those, because they're looking for people with that kind of background. And so I think we'll just be a leg up there. Or a foot in the door, maybe a better way of saying.
Related to the foot in the door, so Tracy is asking, when she does research for a particular role, where to know who the hiring manager is, particularly in a big company, and if she can get Connect, how do I know will be the most willing to accept my invitation? I'm assuming
it's tricky to find the hiring manager sometimes in a big company. I think you can just do searches. I think, yeah, there are a couple of tools we've discussed, asking people to connect you to within the organization, because I mean, I know I can look internally to find out who the hiring manager is, so that could be your specific ask of someone. And then, you know, again, if you're trying to connect with someone, I think the more likely to connect would be someone where you've done a really tailored message, you know, and you can perhaps connect because you've got something in common. So, you know, I think college is a great way if you've got someone who's, you know, part of your network, you know, perhaps you're in the same group like this, something like that.
And Amritha, this kind of thing touched upon what you said earlier around different former colleagues reached out. Is it really out of the blue to reconnect with employees from your previous industry after 6+ years, especially if you're exploring outside of that industry?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm part of the alumni for literally everything you can think of, so including university and my previous jobs and Accenture alumni and Oracle alumni, everything. So yeah, I mean, I think it really helps. I mean, it's you know, when you maintain that network and I think people, your ex-colleagues, I think are great people to look to when it comes to advocating you when you're looking for a new job. You know, they are great people to you know, to give job recommendations or you know, a recommendation letter or whatever that is, right? Because you know, there's obviously screening when you come to the end by HR. I mean, it's happened to me when I moved from Australia to the US. There was a lot of screening that happened, you know, when I was taking up my first job, and so my ex-colleagues from my previous job were the ones that really, you know, spoke for me when they reached out to them regarding, you know, my skills and my ability, and you know, there were a lot of weird questions asked to them around my personality, around, you know, how I'm able to do things, and you know, they actually took the time to do that because we maintained that connection with them. So I would definitely highly recommend, even if you're just starting the journey, to continue to keep that connection with your ex-colleagues.
And I think we have just 2 more questions in 2 minutes. So I think one of them is, where are the list of links? So Max, I think that's for you to follow up in terms of sending out and sharing with the group. And then, do you have any tips for getting to know the culture of companies other than informational interviews? Perhaps a faster way to know what the company values cultures are like.
For those, I've often found, I mean, again, there's some sites I think that online that do a pretty good job, not always perfect, because you kind of get both ends of the extreme, but sites like Glassdoor, that's sort of the big one. Sometimes I think salary.com might also do some. But if you do some Googling, people often have written about their experiences. Sometimes people post articles on Medium. So I think you can get some context. I would caveat though, the people usually who are writing job reviews either love it or hate their company. So you're probably going to get ones on either end of the extreme. So don't necessarily take them as, you know, as representative. But I think usually you can find some kind of consistent themes throughout. You know, if people who both loved it, the company, and didn't like it, both mentioned, you know, maybe that it's really political or that it's really bureaucratic, you can probably assume that's probably a feature of the company. So I think you can kind of read between the lines between some of those reviews. But I've also found that helpful, especially for companies, if I even want to begin exploring or to have more context to ask about specifically, if I do get connected to someone down the road.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think that's a wrap.
Right. Thank you so much, Maria, first of all, for moderating that very long panel discussion and Q&A. You did a fabulous job, and you got so much out of our panelists, and you shared so many valuable insights. And big shout out to our panelists as well for this very insightful and valuable panel discussion, especially at a time like this when, you know, there's so many unknowns and there's so much, you know, there's so much anxiety around job searches and referrals, and a big shout out to Max and JobFit for sponsoring this webinar. It is 7:30, and I know our panelists, especially, you know, you've had long days already with work, and some of you have kids and other stuff going on. So I just want to say thank you for, you know, staying back and answering all the questions. I know some of you shared your links on LinkedIn, so encourage all the attendees to, you know, connect not just with the panelists, but with each other. I think Max might stay on for a little bit and answer any questions folks have here. He'll type them out. And I'm going to leave this chat box on and the Q&A box on so people can still connect. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us, all the panelists, the moderator, Max, and thank you to all the attendees who made it possible. And I look forward to seeing you at future events. And I just want to wish everyone the best of luck. Stay safe and healthy and positive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together, Nana. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye. Thanks.
So there's 2 more questions, and then I can answer those. So one of the questions is, if you know multiple people at a company, should you go to the highest level, or is that bringing out the big guns? I think one of the things that you have